All right, Tony, here we go. First ever live stream. Tony Sterling fired up in the building. We're going to do a quick mic check. Cancel. All right. All right, Tony, you ready? We live, baby. Here we go. We are in the cornfield for today's live stream. We are at my parents' house. As always, I am your host, Joel Lincoln, the corn-fed portion of this podcast. We got the man out of the bayou. He's going to be coming in here on this side. Pull up a chair. We brought him to the farm. My dad, Dougie Fresh, was wearing a Denim Springs high basketball camp shirt today as he woke up. Here we go. Tony Sterling, welcome to the program. Welcome to the farm. How are we doing today?
Doing good.
Good. This is an omnidirectional microphone, Tony. So all we got to do is talk. It picks up all of it. Absolutely. We got the Yeti. Had this for a little bit, $100 investment here at Game Shot. So we got home about 24 hours ago yesterday afternoon. We just finished up Snow Valley Basketball School for boys session 2. And we had about just under 400 campers, 395 were in the building. And we had almost 70 coaches there. Tony, what were your initial thoughts? Who were some clinicians? And what year? We'll start there. What year Snow Valley was this for you?
This was year 11 for me. Really 10, because 2020 they didn't have any camps because of COVID, but guys still connected during that time. It was typical for me, especially coming to camp where it all started for me, doing other camps and stuff. Pretty much is when I come to Snow Valley, it's pretty like just refresh my mind. It's pretty much therapeutic when I come here each summer.
Yeah,
it's kind of of course you learn new things, you learn how to learn every day, but I'm always at peace. Get refreshed for the season in high school, or just starting school in general in high school. So
yeah, absolutely. And it was fun, obviously, to be back and to be where it all started. There's actually a couple coaches that we were talking the night of the social, just how they got involved with Snow Valley. And so, Tony, how did you? And I've got actually a fun story about the camp director, Coach Showalter, how I got started. But Tony, how did you first get connected with Snow Valley?
At the time, I was working kids camps at Northwestern State with head coach, Coach Mike McConnell, that I've known for a long time, and Coach Jeff Moore, who I played for in college at Bossier Parish Community College, and they had an assistant on staff. Me and him being the same age, Jacob Spielbauer, whatever. Just one day I was in the coach's office and I asked him about if he knew, this camp called Snow Valley. He was like, "Yeah, man, I was a camper there and work it." He was like, "You want to work?" He was like, I was like, "Okay." So it's kind of crazy, me trying to research the camp before, working camps at Northwestern for a short amount of time. Then just reached out to Coach Show and just went from there. Always more of a family because we always reach out to each other throughout the year, stuff like that. But always been one of those deals where you never forget where you come from.
Mm-hmm.
And me doing all the camps with like Nike and Jordan Brand and other camps that's around the country. It really actually all started at Snow Valley for me.
Yeah, and I've got similar. A lot of the things I've been able to do in the game all started. Yeah, so I'm actually back here on the farm, and it's funny you talk about forgetting where never forgetting where you came from because we're back at my parents' house. We've got a few-day break in between camps. There's boys session 1, like Tony and I were going to dive into a little bit more. But yeah, how I got started in Snow Valley was my senior year. Coach Showalter coached in my high school conference. And I had been to Camp Snow Valley as a camper as well. So I knew a little bit about Coach Showalter and everything. But then when we played Mid Prairie after the game, at that point, I knew I was going to be playing college basketball. I knew I wanted to get into coaching. And so I went with my parents, and funny, they just got home. We went in, and I just after the game, before we got on the bus, I just had, Coach told Coach Showalter I wanted to get into coaching, and what advice did he have, or what should I do? And he said, you should come be a counselor at Snow Valley. And I'd went I think 3 years as a camper. So I was obviously familiar with what it was, and then started the first year as a counselor. Just airing up basketballs, helping out with kids waking down oversleeping in the morning. At that time, it was 5 days, so that day 2, 3, 4. Especially day 4, there was usually a little bit more amount of kids that would sleep in, things like that. And then, just whatever was needed. And then when there wasn't anything needed, because by the middle of the camp, things were rolling pretty smooth, especially after the morning, making sure everybody's there for all the sessions. After that, it was pick whatever clinician I wanted to go watch and help out. And then, as it progressed, I think week 3 or 4, Coach Showalter just had me start coaching out of basket, still doing a lot with, attendance and just stuff like that. And after that, it was moving forward. I've coached there now. And actually, it was funny. At first, I started as an assistant for Greg Ferrucci, who, as we both know, is still there, the coach with the pink backpack. Great guy. But yeah, so it's funny how you mentioned family and where things all started because, Coach Ferrucci was there last week. He's going to be back this week, actually out of Rockford, Illinois. And then this year, ironically, speaking of being an assistant coach, I was an assistant for Giacomo Terabini, who is from northern Italy. His English is much better than my Italian. However, his English is not quite as good as my English. So it was fun to help him out, learned a ton from him just with the way. He really knew the game, and it was I've coached in China, so working through a translator is painful, but similar to my Italian, my Mandarin's even worse. So, just seeing him, and it was awesome to get to know him. We both enjoy hiking and things like that. So we bonded over that. He taught me a few things, what a chalet is. Tony, you know what a chalet is? Or a chalet? It is a mountain home. So where he's at, it's beautiful. I'm hoping hopefully next summer make a trip over to visit him just because it's so beautiful right there in the mountains. He enjoys hiking. He has a chalet in the mountains with an incredible view. So, Snow Valley obviously has great coaches. And, for me, it's been great to get to know people, not only from across the United States, but internationally as well. Who are some of the international guys or other countries you can remember coaches being from, Tone?
Pretty much forgot his name. He was from Spain, I think. Forgot his name. I still keep up with him on Twitter, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You see how he try to throw me in these type of things. Mine just went blank.
Yeah.
Whatever. So,
you talking about Al Zvanovic?
yes, him.
Slovenia, man, that's Luca's guy. He told us about Luca when he was 15. Told him the future was coming.
Yeah, he was a post player, whatever. And he always have great clinics.
Yeah, he played. He played at Hawaii, and very, very. He's an excellent post coach, and I believe now the reason he can't come out, when I was speaking with Coach Schultz leading up to camp, was he's coaching the professional ranks. So, we miss you, Al, but excited for your success. And William Twig is another international guy that was there this week. This is his 4th or 5th year being there, and he's done great things. And he brought another one of his London Lion coaches. And then obviously domestically to bring it back to where it all came from with Spielbauer. Ken Spielbauer has been great for me personally as a PE teacher and somebody that's in front of kids and trying to, provide education along with a little entertainment. A lot of what I've done teaching wise is a lot of, cracking jokes and just being relatable and, humorous with kids. So, but you've stayed with Coach Spielbauer. So what are a couple of Coach Spielbauer stories? He's a very guy. He has no social media, so he will not know this exists at any point. So, Tone, what's a Coach Spielbauer story? Because the first few years before me and you became real good friends, you were going with them back to Wapello, Iowa.
Well, he always wanted me to work out his kids. Then he introduced me to Casey's Pizza, probably the most famous gas station pizza in the world, in my opinion. The breakfast pizza is pretty awesome, but in general, it's really good pizza. But he always wanted me to work out his guys, Trent Messner or whatever, which he's playing on the G League team, which my brain has went blank again. I don't know which summer league team he's playing with, but I remember working him out, whatever, and a couple more of his other kids. But best thing about Ken Spielbauer, he just comes up with drills. He'll see you shoot, no play or whatever. He know specifically what to work on.
Mm-hmm.
So great game. He got a great mind for the game. Actually was a player himself and his two sons, Jake and Davis. I think all three of them are 1,000-point scorers for William Penn University up here. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so don't let the appearance and the jokes and everything fool you. He knows the game, can teach it at a very high level, and not only teach it but play it at a high level. And he can definitely still pass it off of his head, off his elbow, behind the back, all that if a kid's dozing off during one of his clinics. So appreciate Coach Spielbauer. And like I said, we got home yesterday afternoon, and in that time, Tony's been faithfully reading 61 by Chris Paul, talking about the 61 the lessons he learned from his grandfather. And Tone, so what's the backstory of the title of 61?
Well, basically, he just honoring his grandfather's. Honoring, that's the year of when his grandfather lost his life, being murdered.
Mm-hmm. And how old was CP3 when that happened?
He was a senior in college. It was actually after he signed with Wake Forest. Then they went to a preseason game. Then that was the last after that day, that night. That was the last time he seen him alive, whatever. But he basically just dedicated pretty much his whole life to his grandfather after that. Just how not with basketball, but just how his grandfather helped a lot of people in the community. Because he owned the gas station, whatever, fixed cars, changed oil, inspection stickers, stuff like that. And pretty much Chris Paul and his brother CJ grew up there, which I had, had the privilege of getting to meet both of those guys and getting to know some of the family members through the camps that I work and stuff like that with them. And great people, great family people. And if I can say, if it's a family-oriented AU program out there, it's Team CP3, with John Adams and Steve Shelton running that. And I think Chris, dad and mother, they still involved with it as well. Mm-hmm. But they just don't teach them about basketball, teach them about, life lessons and stuff like that, how to stick together because, everybody needs help, especially in anything. Most people, he talks about it in the books. Some people say they self-made or they got it on their own. You know, that's something.
That's not
That
how.
ain't,
Yeah,
it ain't how it is.
nobody.
But I actually finished this book today. Pretty good book. Try to really with with the NBA players, everybody writing books. I think because of what Kobe did with his book, try to see what made him tick. And Chris Paul talks about hard work with a little bit of luck, but he always, like I said, from his grandfather working hard like that. That's where he got his work ethic from. And I wanted to share that with people that's in the circle and stuff like that. So it's a good book to read. He actually has a chapter about Kobe in his book called The Mamba Mentality, how they were almost teammates. And one thing he pointed out how Kobe was a good catch and shoot type of guy. And that's one thing he was excited about if they got the chance to play together. But
Yeah, the history would unfortunately have that one go the other way. But yeah, I think success leaves clues, and there's plenty of clue. Obviously CP3 has been very successful on the court, long career, and will continue to be successful. I'm curious and excited to see how things go in Golden State. Obviously, we're in the NBA offseason now, summer league wrapping up, and then Tony just switched over. Actually, before we move on to the book you just brought out, what other NBA, or I guess what was just your biggest takeaway from the CP3 book when you're moving forward, either as a teacher, son, all that? What's going to be the biggest takeaway you get from reading 61?
uh, one thing he said, everybody tick differently, but he said that what those people have in common is tunnel vision, how focused they are to achieve something.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
He said it
so
might be different, things that make you tick, but like how much you think about it outside of working on that craft, in the moment of all that. But like he always said, like the most successful people have tunnel vision of what they want to be successful about.
excellent. And one last question now before we move on to the next book we're going to be discussing is, what other NBA players' books have you read? Obviously, Mamba Mentality we read last month. What other former NBA players' books have you read?
Kevin Garnett book that came out last year called A to Z. I don't want to mention it, but some of those books that I've read, I kind of can't get into them. But I know Kobe Bryant's book, KG's book, really good. If you're a parent and you want your son to read that book, you read it first, because the way he talks, if you listen to him in interviews, especially,
Podcast places where you can freely express yourself.
It's not kiddie friendly. But other than that, it's been really 3 books that I've read. Michael Jordan's book, that's from a while back, which everybody know his story. But you don't even have to read a book about his story. You get bits and pieces, and by the time you read the book, be like, okay, I already knew that. But but Kobe Bryant and Chris Paul's book pretty good. I got a lot of books that I buy. I wanted to read Grant Hill's book, but so busy with doing everything, he kind of gets sidetracked with all this stuff. Kendrick Perkins has a book that I haven't read that I have.
LeBron's book is on the what were we talking about yesterday? Because we're going to preview this next book here in a moment. But it was Coach Showalter's book, and then you said LeBron's book. But you said LeBron didn't write his real one. What's that about?
I think that's whoever the author is. He kind of collected everything that he knew about LeBron, but I think LeBron gonna actually probably write his book.
Yeah,
like Kobe wrote his book.
Tell their own story.
His own words.
Yeah, tell their story.
Yeah. But people don't know that Kobe actually got his, the way he wanted to write his book actually from Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan has a book out. It's from a long, long time ago. You'll probably have to go to find it on Amazon. It's really old, but Michael Jordan was talking about the game the same way Kobe was talking about it in his book. So if you want some thoughts about where you got all the ideas from, I mean, go look that book up.
Okay. And speaking of books you should look up and the places we are right now, Coach Showalter, Coach Don Showalter, Cornfields to gold medals. Very excited. I'm about 50 pages ahead. Yeah, we'll put it right there. Absolutely. And yeah, if you can see the cornfields in the background, I apologize if you hear the dog barking, Larry Bird in the fence on the farm. Not happy. But Tone, obviously, Coach Showalter. I guess I'll speak for myself. Coach Showalter, obviously, like I mentioned earlier, gave me my start in coaching and everything from telling me I should become a manager when I went to college to helping me get the opportunity to coach in the USA Gold camps, um, everything in between. Anytime I have a question, Coach Showalter, if you know him, is very personable, accessible, and I can speak from my experience. He's been great anytime I've had a question, big, small, anything, bounce an idea, ask him, what should I do in this situation? Or what do you think of this? How can this be better? He's always number one. If he doesn't answer, he gets right, gets back to you. Text is awesome. It's just, has no reason as a guy from a town of about 800 people in Iowa, has no reason that he needs to help myself or really anyone out. But, the reason he is who he is because he does that. And he does it for everyone. That bouncing around different circles. I've never heard a whole, anybody really say no one's had any ill feelings towards Coach Show that I've ever encountered. And that's a credit to him. And, I'm about 50 pages in reading about his early stories. Tone, but what's a Coach Showalter story you have from one of the camps or sometime you had or something you're looking forward to with the book?
Man, he the same every time you see him. Guess when I was in Houston for the Final Four, whatever, I seen him, he walked in the room, he was, glad to see me for the mini camp or whatever, but he always the same. And like Joe was saying, if he texts, he gonna get right back to you. Even like with emails, I think he respond to everybody email possible. He might have 1,000 emails, he might not respond right then and there, but he gonna get back to you. But pretty much he like you have mentors in your life, but like he's a close mentor to me, but I think he's like kind of an outside mentor if you need any questions or anything, or whatever, he gonna get back to you. But I guess it's the same way he was working hard through coaching, meeting different people. It's kind of like he got the blueprint of how to do it, but he wants you to see it for yourself, have your own experiences, stuff like that. Kind of how not on a spiritual perspective when you're trying to ask God to lead you in the right direction or whatever. God don't really give you the straight path of doing everything. It's kind of how Coach Show is. He try to give you ideas and advice about what to do. So
Yeah, and I think you hit it big on nail right on the head when you say it's the same. Whether it's how he acted this week and acts the entire time, he's the same guy. I saw him at the NBA academies a week ago before Snow Valley. Walked in, big smile, excited to see me, and then same thing when he walks into the meeting day one of Snow Valley. Same exact thing, just excited to be there, excited to be and excited just to be around the game and talks to everybody. He has the amazing ability that no matter who he's talking to or interacting with, he makes you feel like you're the most heard person, makes time for it. It has just been great. So, Coach Show, I'm just a quick, I started reading it this morning. I fell asleep for full transparency about 8:30 last night. I couldn't even make the full drive home from Snow Valley. Had to pull off. Tone and I in the car, take a quick 20-minute nap, and then drove the rest of the way home. So got on that, started reading it this morning, and just as early. Obviously, this is going to come as a surprise to no one, but he started working camps and worked his way up, and then I didn't know he goes into his his college career, and then his first 3 years of coaching, he didn't have a winning record. That he was actually hired near back near where Wellman, where he's from. But even just like in high school, I didn't know he transferred. So there's just you think like I said, I thought somebody I spend time with every summer since I graduated high school. So he's kind of seen me grow into my adulthood, and I feel like I've known him, and I've known a lot. But this goes into the depth of it and giving the examples. And I love how you said it's the blueprint. It's the blueprint of, hey, here's how you do it. You write letters, you connect, you do the right thing, you treat people the right way. You do the work, and you tune in and absolutely get to it. So yeah, I'm very excited not only to continue reading that, the Coach K book, the Tony Sterling Basketball Book Club. We're taking a little pause at maybe changing hands or get a little revamp here in the fall. But if you have not read it, I know we got one friend, JT Writing House. If Tony doesn't get the book read, I'm going to just have JT tell me what it was, what it's all about, and hit me on the highlights because it got shipped to Charlotte. And I will not be back in Charlotte until the beginning of August. So I will be reading it, but we will be recapping it. Tony, any thoughts on the Coach K book that you want to touch on preview? Because we will be trying to get live with JT to recap that. Because shout out to JT for reading like 300 plus pages in 10 days in preparation for the Tony Sterling Basketball Coaches Book Club. So Tone, what we got on Coach K's book?
I haven't read it yet because I was reading this one and about to read this one. So
So JT will be getting us with, hey, no problem. I've been doing this since high school. I didn't quite do all the reading. Hey, break it down for me. So I'm excited to hear what JT has.
Don't use clip notes.
Hey, I know JT told me he read all 311 pages, and he ain't going to lie to me. So excited to recap that with JT. And yeah, bonus, so JT, now that you're done, you've got the rest of July as you originally told us we should do. You have the rest of July to read Cornfields to Gold Medals. Speaking of just a couple other personal notes before we kind of recap what's happened since our last pod to now. We went fishing today. Like I said, Tony didn't read. My dad early was rocking Denham Springs, thoroughly outfished myself, my mom. Not only did he catch about the same amount of fish as me, Tony didn't participate, so I guess he took last. But he did make sure he got 61 done for you. But yeah, Dougie Fresh fully outfished me in the Denham Springs shirt. So we're back in Iowa and just enjoying the time away here. We got today, tomorrow, going to be relaxing. But one thing I do want to touch on, Tony, is every year at Snow Valley, and I think this has been going on. I know it started with Coach Locke. I think the first couple of years I worked, there wasn't the weekly coaches clinic. But do you remember when they started doing the weekly clinics in the evening?
They always done it since I've been going there.
Okay, so it may have just been the first year I did it. But yeah, they started doing every camp session. It's been great. They do a coaches clinic, and this week, Greg White gave a presentation from Bentonville, Arkansas, home of Walmart, also home of the Arkansas Tech Wonder Boys. Personal note, I've never lost in Bentonville, Arkansas when I coached at East Central University with Coach Jay Havens. We went over there, played Harding University, which the Bison play in an old airport hangar. And their claim to fame, and I don't know who did the poll, but it is the best home court in college basketball. How they earned that title, we'll leave that to the people. But it is now, okay, Coach Fuji chiming in. But we were the first team in Great American Conference history to sweep that road trip. And we did it twice. So went over and played Harding and Arkansas Tech. Arkansas Tech, home of the Wonder Boys, is also in Bentonville. And Greg White from Bentonville West, took over a program, was it 6 or 8 years ago, on the first year of the school. And then he kind of gave a great presentation. And Greg White 32 on Twitter. is great follow, and he had a lot of great ideas. Tony, what did you take away from that clinic? And then we can address some of the things in the comments.
He, with Coach White, he always straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
Like he got an old school feel. But one thing I got from him, from how he run his program or anything, he always try to be understanding towards, what others are going through, not what they think, what they're going through. And he try to put his thoughts into their minds, whatever, try to make it better. Specifically when he was talking about holding the kids accountable in this program and, teaching them life lessons, basically how you going to be when you're 30 years old as a man out here in this world where you got to handle problems on your own, stuff like that.
One thing you said is you got
another thing he was saying, everybody try to get advice from like Coach K, Coach Boeheim, how to get into coaching, and it's a fact that their stories are pretty much diminished from how to get in the coaching game now, because the college game done evolved.
Yeah, it's changed. The recruiting landscape has significantly affected it.
If you want to get in, for example, if you want to get in college coaching, or even getting to know a college coach, or work the camps, or if anything with the NBA, which the NBA is pretty meticulous. Like one of them aspirations working in the NBA, go to some league, meet people. But at the end of the day, in the NBA, you gotta know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
because the players will eat you up. That's one thing Coach Locke, told us about. Then you don't have no life in the NBA either. So
yeah, and
you gotta really love it. The only people that got actually a life in the NBA is the players. Coaches don't.
Yeah, because all they're doing is they're getting their coverages, and you got to be very prepared because I think what gets lost a lot of the times is professional athletes aren't necessarily the coaches are just as responsible. And right now with the league, the way the contracts work, it's coaches or players league, and the players are a lot easier to get rid of, or the coaches are a lot easier to get rid of than the players. And to get into college coaching, if you don't know who players are, you have no idea. And if you don't have access to those players, especially at a high major level, like if you don't have access to players or know about players and be able to provide your own evaluations and find those diamonds in the rough and, recruit and then retain your roster and develop your roster, college coaching is going to be a tough gig. I think the days of, the high school coach that's just kind of there and, eventually gets better at coaching to go to college aren't really there. I would say more about players, you get more connected with players, and club basketball, unpopular opinion, is the way, and I think the recruiting calendar reflects that. I think the events reflect that. That college coaching, the access comes through club basketball and relationships, more importantly, with players outside of it. And so, Tony, I was not familiar with this. We appreciate Coach Fuji, who will be in the great state of Iowa in just a few days, for commenting in. He was saying that in California, so the coaches clinic, so Snow Valley, California, Snow Valley originated in California with Coach Herb Livesey, who Tony knows very well. And he was actually at the boys session 1 at the end of June, just won an NBA ring as a scout for the Denver Nuggets. He was the originator of the camp. And Tony, can you kind of elaborate on the story of Snow Valley specifically up to this point? And then we'll bounce back to the coaches clinics at lunch, because I'm curious about how that went.
I was working Snow Valley, Iowa before I worked the California one with the original guys. So I think it was 2016. 2016, I worked however many camps I worked out here in Iowa. Then I flew to California to work Snow Valley, California, Actually, that's where I met Fuji at, and Steve Middleton, um, Coach Carlton, all those guys or whatever. And I remember they had a little coaching clinic. It was like around lunchtime, like at Snow Valley Hour. They have coaching clinic. As soon as the camp over with at like 10 at night or whatever. But it was pretty good.
Mm-hmm. And then, so what was the lunch? Who did you hear speak? Because you went out there just 1 year.
1 year.
And who was the lunchtime presenters
Coach
for?
Severance, which both of us, he's with the Clippers. For a
He's
long
retired.
time.
He's just doing
Yeah,
Gym Rat
yeah.
now. Check him out. Great resources. Gym
Yeah.
Rat with a J.com.
Yeah, I was actually emailing him. Never got to meet him, but I was actually emailing him back and forth. He's a big LSU, football fan. He want to actually come to a game. That's like one of his bucket list deals. So since he was retired, he probably come down for a game.
Hey, I've been trying to get down to a game. Here's what Tony does. He tells you, come on down for a game. So he told me to come down to a game. This is probably going on like 3 or 4 years. He's like, man, they're trash. It's not going to be fun. Not going to be a game. Overtime game against Alabama. Joey Burrow. Brr. Yeah, Joey Burrow's there. And Tony says, not going to be a good game. So that's what happened there. And then last year, I was supposed to, or 2 years ago, I don't remember who they were playing. Good game, national game. And I'm just a football fan. Iowa State, that's where I go. Brock Purdy for Division I. But Northwest Missouri State, their football team won national championship while I was there. But I'm not a huge I'm an experienced guy, and the experience at the LSU game, maybe one day I'll actually get to experience it, does look electric. And last year I was supposed to go, and then Tony decided to go to a Made Hoops event, and that was the Florida game that I think went into double or triple overtime. And he also told me that game would be a bad game, and it wouldn't be fun to be there. So Tony, when Coach Severance is going, just make sure, because I know you'll make sure when Sev's there, actually stay there, and we can go, whether the game's trash or not. I just want to check it all out where the, check it out. I was there last summer when I was in Denham Springs. Coach Moore would love to check out a practice, all that. And I know you have plenty of relationships over there, and I'm excited to see what they're doing, because I think, from the practice and from what they're bringing in, man, it's only going to get better. And I know they got certainly the amount of resources to make some things happen at LSU right now. So
Coach Severance, ask Brian Frick.
Hey,
people know in the Bayou when games are going to be bad. Talking about the atmosphere. We're not talking about the game. Of course, people go to the game. We're talking about the atmosphere, but that's another thing that we talk about.
We can get that preview the fall. But yeah, so you heard Coach Dave Severance, man. That's a nice little nugget. I had no idea. So yeah, the coach, just to bounce back, one thing Coach White said a lot. I really enjoyed his presentation. Talked about being open-minded and objective, and just making sure what you're doing makes sense, not just in the moment, but in long term. One thing he said that I really enjoyed was he's an evidence seeker, and just trying to make sure he's doing things the right way, and not just running players because it's this. Well, is that really going to get my point across? And then another thing he said was, he thinks about it probably once or twice a month of how, what if I'm doing this wrong? And that was not only being a coach, but that was being a father and different things. And I think that's just a great question, to get some thoughts going, especially on some reflection. So I really enjoyed it, and different things they do with their program, how they empower their players, and they say figured out a lot. Definitely stimulated some good thoughts, and I thought he had a great presentation. So I'm excited, man, and obviously we're here over the weekend. Maybe bounce out, fish tomorrow, or just relax, a little disc golf. If you can't see in the background, there's nothing but cornfields. So we're gonna be chilling at the crib. It has been beautiful here in Iowa, and I am excited not only get up for session 2, but I did want to recap. Tony, what were you doing leading up to going up to Snow Valley? How'd your summer wrap up with down in there in Denham Springs? What was your focus this June? How do you feel like you guys got better, and how'd you guys wrap up the end of the month?
like I said in the past podcasts, we just happy to have everybody there at each practice. You know, this guy late, that guy not coming. We pretty much had everybody show up at each day. So other than that, I usually run and us having renovations to our football stadium. We got a track now. Then the home side is much bigger. So I started running stadiums or whatever. Then had a couple of players join us, former players as well. Shout out to Jordan Reams. Um, he was at Bossier Parish this past year. TJ McGee. His dad coaches at Live Oak High School. TJ actually plays football for Davidson in North Carolina. His
Benefit
brother
around.
Jordan, Christian Pucho, Larry, Gahan, Jermaine. Who else?
You got a good little crew out there sweating it out.
Even though some guys didn't show up, every day. So,
Well, hey, hopefully they're doing it now that you're gone. But I did want to, it's funny you mentioned Davidson because leading up to coming up here, I was in Atlanta helping out with the NBA Academy games, which was essentially an AAU event, an AAU style event for the NBA Academies. They had both academies from Africa, a couple from Latin America, as well as Australia. And then TSF, the Skills Factory, had their post grad team playing in that, which it was pretty good. It was interesting just to see the level in the classification, and there was a couple guys and girls that's like, hey, they definitely have some game. I don't have the booklets in front of me, but I will be, we can share those names. And the only people allowed in it were obviously the players. It was coached by NBA Academy coaches. So networking wise, Coach Matt Blue was very amazing. Just, being open, being a resource. As I spoke with him several times, and he actually had the NBA Academy Blue team, which lost in the championship to the Center of Excellence, which was the Australian team. The Australian team, they have 6'8" guard that, hey, he could go. I don't know if I'm not an NBA scout, but the only other, college coaches were there, NBA scouts, and then people that were working it. They did allow, immediate family members to attend, but obviously with it being a global academy, there weren't a ton of families. There were, a handful there, just supporters, but it was an overall good event. Nicole Dixon was in charge of the staffing and was one of the co-directors. So she'll be up at Snow Valley for the girls' week, the last week of of July. So had a great time. Learned, just seeing that level. And as we do our different events, because there's, there were some 2025s there. So, and 2026, just seeing those kids and how they compare to the levels. So definitely enjoyed that. And yeah, looking forward to on Monday, going to get some of that world famous Casey's Pizza, breakfast pizza. Tony, what's your go-to Casey's breakfast pizza flavor?
Bacon, egg, and cheese.
Hey, it's the best. But the sausage bangs as well, pause. But we'll be doing that on Monday. Going to bounce over to West Branch. Jason Kern, who actually shout out Jay Kern. Maybe we'll have to go live with him as well. Came up with a name for the podcast. Snow Valley guy, his dad, Chris Kern, is another one of the directors that, similar to Coach Spielbauer's, had a direct impact on me as a teacher, coach. And, I've spent a lot of time with him each summer. And yeah, I'm going to be over working with Jason's team on Monday. And then, we're back up Tuesday and then right on up. So appreciate everybody tuning in. We're going to start doing this a little bit more often, especially moving forward. We'll get JT. We'll try to get a little bit more lead up time. I think I tweeted it out like 15 minutes before we went live. Be a friend, tell a friend. Make sure you are subscribing. Tony, what's the little nugget you have for the people before we wrap it up here?
Be you.
Be you. Absolutely. And yeah, just keep doing your best, striving, write down your goals. I think J-Mac, our guy, had a great thought. He did, and that's how I'm not going to tell you the speaking fee, but it ain't low. It's a lot more than I made last week. as a Snow Valley coach. He said, think it, ink it. Yo, write it down like we talk about. Get your journals, write down your goals, make your plan. Like CP3 said, laser focus to be successful. Yeah, Tony was out there as I was just getting absolutely smashed. My dad out fishing me. Tony was locked in, nose in a book, taking his notes, everything like that. So appreciate y'all live tuning in. We'll do this. We'll give you a little bit more regular scheduled content. So there will be a ton of drills coming out. I've been bad about getting things lined up being on the road, but no more excuses. I'm going to get all that content set tomorrow, and we'll be having, by September, we'll have almost 100 videos on the channel. Weekly podcasts will be returned to being weekly, maybe a little more frequently as we're together working things like Snow Valley, everything like that. I don't know what the Wartburg Wi-Fi situation is and if it can support this fire content. So appreciate you tuning in. Be you, write it down, think it, ink it, get better. If you have not yet, make sure you hit subscribe. We'll see you guys next time. Make sure you check out the content all week, individual development drills coming at you soon.